All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. All right, was the meeting properly posted? Yes. Right. We have an 14-point agenda today.
Carrie Severson will second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have an approved agenda. Item number 4, approved minutes from the May 14th, 2021 LEJC meeting. Anyone have any additions or corrections?
I'll move.
Motion by Severson, second by McGuire. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Item number 5, coroner updates.
I do have an update from the coroner. He submitted by email. His report is our office handled 12 cases in May. 3 were hospice cases. We recorded no accidents, suicides, or overdoses, and didn't have any cases sent for autopsy. We ended May with 52 total cases year to date. In comparison, following are the totals at the same from 2017 to 2020. So 2017, there were 50 cases as of May, 2018, 47 cases, 2019, 48 cases, and 2020, 61 cases. Thus far, our office has responded to a total of 3 calls in June. Given the recent temps, we are very thankful that we haven't experienced any heat-related deaths. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out if there are questions or concerns.
All right, thank you. All right, item number 6, clerk of court updates.
I want something on the coroner.
What?
Can I talk about the coroner?
Oh, yes, please.
Who oversees the budget for the coroner's department? Is it this committee or is it county board?
No, I believe it's this committee.
And then,
I don't know that
What-
we've ever seen a budget from the coroner, though. In my years on LEJC, I have
Okay.
not seen a budget.
I haven't seen any bills from him either for like autopsies and anything. Like, how do those get paid
That's
then?
true.
If they never come through our committee?
Well, I suppose audit committee gets those bills.
So do they need to come here first before they go to audit, or?
I will find out, and let's put that on the agenda for next time. Does that seem reasonable?
It seems like the
Unless someone
sheriff
knows.
and everybody else comes
Is
to
it-
like their
right,
home
to their
committee.
their home committee. All right, I will look into that, and we will have it on the agenda for next month. That's a good question. I never even thought about that. So thank you. All right, anything further?
Do we want to put that down under a future agenda item?
We don't have, is future agenda item on here?
Yeah.
It is, okay, yeah. I mean, it can be under either one of those things, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 6, clerk of court updates. We did get the email from her last night with her report, or not last night, but several days ago with her report. And I don't see her online. So I'm going to assume, unless anyone has anything they'd like to discuss from that report, that we will just simply accept her report as written.
She's at a conference this week.
Okay, thank you. All right. Item number 7, probate department.
Just confirming what Jennifer said, that Stacy's at the clerk of courts conference. On the register and probate, I don't have a lot new. Our budget is still under budget at this time of year. And our only bills are the telephone bill and bills coming in from attorneys. And then the only other thing that's new is that both Devin and myself will be attending the juvenile clerks conference. So as register and probate, as you all know, I wear 3 hats: register and probate, juvenile clerk, and judicial assistant. So Devin and I will be going on separate days. She'll be going on Wednesday, and I believe I'm planning to go Thursday and Friday. It's a 3-day conference. And so that'll be coming up at the end of July. So the dues that are on our budget for those conferences, and those dues cover the cost. And it's put out, so it's like continuing education.
So here's a situation where we don't actually approve her bills either. She just tells us what they are.
And that is because it's a line item in the budget. So in my budget, there's, attorney fees, there's starting at item fees, there's membership dues. So if it's already a line item budget that's been approved and with it, there's nothing new, nothing out of the ordinary, if there's money set aside for that, then you're right, that it just comes out of the budget.
But that would be true of any department. I mean, for the most part, your bills are coming out of your line items. So I guess that's a question we'll just find out whether, I mean, it's always been done this. I assume it's always that you just report in
Yeah.
what has appeared on your bills for that month.
Yeah, and I guess, we've always felt compelled to communicate, is our budget going under budget, over
Right.
budget? Are things, way over on one particular line? So,
And that would be true of the clerk of court as well. She doesn't actually, she shows us her bills, but we don't actually approve them. So I guess I'll look into it and see what I can find out as far as how that, where the line is who does have to report, who doesn't. So, okay.
that's pretty much it for the budget. As far as on the side of court things, we are still working out some of the transition of going back to in-person. Judge Sharp has been on the bench more, and so he's getting used to our new equipment and learning all of that. So of course, there's a bit of a transition and some things that we're still working out, but we're moving towards that direction. And so for the most part, June and July will continue to be transition months, and then everything will be, pretty much back in person with the exception of request made to the judge to appear by Zoom and so forth. But we're moving back towards how things used to be more.
Is the idea that we would allow, I don't know what term to use, inmates, prisoners to appear without so we don't have less transports? Is that still going to be part of an option available?
Actually, the judge seems to be leaning more towards attorneys. So if we're going to have a 15-minute status,
Instead of making them travel all the way here?
yes. So it's more that he is allowing guardian ad litems, adversary counsel. So for short hearings, that,
Allowing people to
yeah,
zoom in.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Where, no, the preferences, and Jennifer can comment on this too here, that he wants the people, the defendants in court more.
Okay. All right. Anything further? Any questions? All right, thank you. All right. So that brings us to item number 8, our district attorney updates. Good morning.
Morning. So to dovetail with the comment about appearances, as a general proposition, all defendants are going to be required to be in court unless there's an authorization to appear by counsel. That can happen in misdemeanor cases. Some attorneys don't file authorizations to appear, which so their clients are not excused from attending. There's some strategic reasons for that I can understand. If it's a status, if it's a reset, if it's something like that, then the court already printed a basically zillion-point plan on what he anticipates or wants to happen as far as appearances. I didn't read through all of them because only one applied to me, and essentially it came down to everyone's got to show up, and that's for a variety of reasons as well, unless there's an authorization to appear. Now, attorneys are not going to be required to appear if it's a reset, if it's a status, if it's something like that. Now, some people have argued over the course of time, if an attorney is going to take a case here, maybe they should show up. Now, on the other hand, for the most part, we have public defenders, defendants who have public defenders or have dean appointments. And so if you have a dean appointment show up, that is an attorney who's showing up for a very short hearing that's going to cost the county. So there is a financial impact on making attorneys show up, especially for hearings that it is really just providing information to the court. They don't last very long. The other appearances, attorneys are going to have to appear I always have to appear. Amy or I have to appear. It was not particularly addressed in the multiple point plan from the court, but I suspect that if someone is sitting in another facility, and that would include another jail or a prison or the resource center or Mendota or Winnebago or any of those places, if they have the ability to appear by video from that facility, we've been doing that. We did that as soon as the technology permitted it. Of course, that's subject to what type of hearing it is. If it's a suppression hearing or a plea or some different things like that, there may be requirements to appear, but as a general proposition on short hearings, the court has always been sensitive to it's pointless to bring inmates here and have transport and all those things that go with it. And once they transfer custody, we also have payment concerns regarding healthcare and all those kind of things. And this court has been sensitive to that as well. Now, the caveat with that is the defendant also has to waive the personal appearance. Defendants always have a right to appear in person, regardless of how short or simple the cases are. Most defendants waive. They don't want to have to come from Green Bay, sit in a transport vehicle for a number of hours, wait here for a number of hours for a 10-minute hearing, and then head back. Occasionally, although I might say rarely, there are offenders who do not waive and who want to come in person, and that's simply because their family lives here and it's easier for their family to come visit here on a quick visit rather than keep driving to Green Bay. But that doesn't happen all that frequently. We have started making the transition to court. I've been appearing via Zoom in court. We can talk about why. Well, we're going to be Zooming, I think, forever, even if we're appearing in court. I think one of the huge benefits to that is we have new statutory and constitutional requirements, and they are unfunded mandates for victims, all kinds of them. And with Zoom, victims there has been a huge increase in victims appering via Zoom because they don't have to leave work. You know, you're a victim of rape, you can't get off of work to come for a 15-minute hearing here in court when you live in Dane County, but something happened here. Now we are having probably hundreds of appearances by victims, so I don't think that is going to change. So we'll be Zooming and in court, which we've been doing, and we've been working out the bugs with that. Anyone have any questions on that before I move on?
I just wanted to add one last thing on that note. That will also, or is already, affecting court security. So that's been something that has, not been there much for the last year. So that's just so that everyone is aware, that now there will be in the budget, there'll be costs and stuff for court security that hasn't been there for a while.
If there are no other questions, I can move to the next position. As we're talking about providing our costs to the county. This office has never done that either. It always goes straight to audit. And I can advise that our costs are paper, pencils, things like that. I have one of the smallest budgets in the county. That's partially because the state has, I think, 2/3 of our budget and the county only has to pay 1/3. But one of the things that is coming up that the things that we have no control over, and of course we haven't been able to have a look back to have some kind of understanding of what those expenses might be in the future, is we probably have more jury trials set now for this goes to September. These are all the days that we have in jury trial in the next couple of months. And jury trials cost money. And they cost the county, the clerk's office. I'm sure Stacy would talk to you about what that means, having to bring, or or Jen, the cost of bringing in jurors and mileage and all those kind of things. But the other costs are, we have exhibits that we have to make. Those aren't free. If I have a substantial battery, which quite frankly, I've got a bunch of them right now, I have to show this part of the face was bashed in, or this is where the laceration was that went all the way down the back of the defendant's head. Sometimes those goes on big boards, sometimes in some cases, let's say in a sexual assault where you might have a rape kit might have been done, and there are photos taken of intimate parts in the vagina. We can't put those up on the big board, on the big video screen. We end up making individual photos for impacts for individual jurors so they can look at those individually. It's evidence. They have to see the evidence, but we have to be sensitive to what's going on. I have a sexual assault with a 76-year-old victim, and she is exercised about the fact that anyone would see any of that kind of evidence about her. We're working through those. So there's other things that come up as far as expenses, and we really don't. Everyone has a right to a jury trial. We got to be able to get our cases beyond a reasonable doubt. We're sensitive to the cost. I have to say, over the course of the years, and I always say this, Andrea pays everything. Any extra stuff I have to pay, any extra stuff I need, she's always paying her own money for it, which I think is ridiculous. She pays for burner phones for victims who are subject to domestic violence and have no way to contact law enforcement. So she's been bearing quite a bit of the burden over the years for things that we need for jury trials. Does anyone have any questions about that particular? And we have to get experts, quite frankly, in, for instance, sexual assault cases and domestic cases. Amy handles domestics. I do sex assault, so I have more information on that. But often we have to employ an expert in order to prove up those cases. And I can give you an example why. Something like it's upwards of 80% of all women never, ever report a sexual assault. And so we have a very small group of people do it all. And sometimes those cases you can push them forward and sometimes you can't. But what often comes up, especially when we get older than toddlers, people don't report for a long time. Something might have happened when a kid was 14 by a caretaker. They're not going to come forward at 14 because they still live in the home, and they might not come forward when they're 18, and it might be they come forward when they're 24. You have to have an expert that says, why did someone take this long to report? Why does that make sense? So statistically, it is important to know why those things happen. Sometimes we have 50 years before someone would report. I had a jury trial, and we kind of tiptoe around very gently. Has anyone been sexually assaulted or know someone who has, so someone has cover. And a woman, gives me chills, a woman who was in her 70s, she reported in open court at that jury trial voir dire for the very first time in her entire life that she was sexually assaulted when she was 22. You have to have an expert to explain why that happens, under what circumstances. So we have experts associated with that. We have experts associated with domestic violence cases, and I won't go into the reasons for that like I just did for sexual assault, but that happens. And I have to say, sexual assault cases, they generally don't resolve as easily as other cases do because there's too much on the line. There's too much for the defendant on the line, and there's too much for the state on the line. So those are less likely to resolve. And I have four before the end of July. So that happens. So all those things have a budget impact that I have a statutory responsibility. I have a constitutional responsibility as far as prosecuting cases, and they have a financial component. Now, looking back, how we've always done our budget in the past is you look back, right? You look back 3 years, you look back 5 years. How many cases have we had? Those kind of things. And then we can say, basically, this is how many cases we have. This is how much cases cost. And that's what we put in our line item. And that's all fine and good. But all bets are off at this point. Everything's getting set. There are a variety of reasons for that and dynamics for that, but those are things I just have no control over those things. But we'll see how the summer shakes out. I know there are some trials that are going to end up getting dumped out for a variety of reasons, not my sex assault, but some cases I think won't end up going. So the list I have ultimately won't be so terrible and won't have such a financial impact. Any questions about that?
I don't think anyone has any questions.
Hearing no questions, we're going to go on to the new and improved unfunded mandate by the state. I've been warning this county about this and this committee, we've heard it, for starting 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, I said there's going to be passage of a constitutional amendment and new statutory amendments, and it's going to result in an unfunded mandate. And I'm pissed off about it, and no one should vote for those provisions for reasons which are certainly defensible, starting with none of the proponents. Their belief of what was going to happen is it's just going to be a little extra paperwork on the part of the DA's offices, and that was not borne out in the testimony that they provided in front of the committees at the state capitol. It was certainly not part of the media efforts to have those provisions supported by the electorate when we were moving to amend the Wisconsin Constitution. But I started talking about that 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year after the constitutional amendment and amendments to Chapter 950, which is the chapter that involves all the rights of victims, which we had prior to the change, but now they have additional changes, additional rights. That happened last year. And I told this committee, I want to see how it shakes out. Everyone says it's just going to be a little bit more paperwork. And so we'll find out in practice what this really looks like. I know one of the committee members said, you've been talking about this for 2 years, and last year asked me, am I going to put it in the budget for my office? And I said, no, we're going to wait. It's responsible to wait. It's fiscally responsible to say, can we absorb what entities believe that we're going to be able to absorb? And that is just not, it's just not the case. We are unable to absorb the new requirements, constitutional and statutory requirements that have been put upon us, and dealing with the pandemic, which has, so we all used all this new technology, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but one of the things that happened with this technology is every victim has a right to be to every single hearing, to speak at every hearing, to do a lot of things. And so that requires a lot of preparation from our office that we never had to do before. And then generally, we don't deal with many people are not sophisticated as a general proposition with what happens in court, what words we use, what does this mean, what did the judge really say, what did the DA say, what did the defense say, what the defense say. It really pissed me off. And so after all of these hearings, we end up having another contact with all of these victims. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of things, new things that we have to do. And that has blown up the things that we have to do as far as requirements. I will again say about our victim witness coordinator. She takes after hours Zoom meetings, 7 o'clock on Saturday night. She takes after hours calls. She takes early morning calls. She takes late night calls. We had a jury trial that was set for a week or two after hours on a Friday because we needed to get information to a nurse right away. She drove from her house in Plain to Hillsborough, the hospital in Hillsborough, on a Friday night after work to get that information to them. It's untenable. We can't do it. It can't continue. She is making every effort to fulfill what we have to do for victims, but it's untenable and it cannot continue. With the new court technology, I believe that we're going to be Zooming and in court forever now, because it is better for victims and it has better compliance abilities for victims. And the judge, who was DA for 22 years, understands the prior victims' rights and is very clear on what the new victims' rights are. So this is going to last forever. And you add the jury trials, it's untenable. So I'm letting this committee know now for the third year in a row that it is untenable. We know, in fact, it is untenable. We cannot meet our requirements moving into the future unless we do something different. And so I'm letting the committee know, I didn't do this last year, but now that I know, I'm going to be making a request for an additional person in my office so that we can meet our requirements. We have requirements. The state doesn't give us any money, with one caveat. We're trying to figure out right now where to put the money that I'm going to be requesting between a new person and between Andrea. And the reason that's important to determine who's going to be doing what is the state gives us a reimbursement for Andrea as a victim witness coordinator. That has been a decreasing decreasing funded mandate over the course of time. 20 years ago, the state completely reimbursed the county, and then maybe only 80%, and then it fluctuates as far as what defendants can pay what, and it goes into a big fund, and then the fund comes back and we say how much money each county gets per year. Generally, we get between $36,000 and $50,000 a year, which goes into the general fund, which is a reimbursement from Andrea. So it might be that we can put some things in Andrea's pot that will help continue to fund and fund more what we would put in for a new person. So we're trying to figure out the numbers about that. I've talked to Derek about that, about what does this cost? What does that cost? But I'm letting you know, I'm putting it in. Yes, it's more levy dollars. I can't do anything about it. I found out about it. I got it in the wind 3 years ago. Complained 2 years ago. It actually happened last year. I didn't ask for the money right away because I wanted to see how it shook out. And now I know what that looks like. So wanted to because the committee's going to see the budget, right? I proposed my budget to this committee and they're going to see it and they're going to say, what the heck is this? So I'm letting you know now, and probably every meeting before I put in that budget that that's what it's going to look like when it comes around. So that's what I can tell you about that.
All right, thank you. I mean, I'm not surprised. We kind of have seen this, the writing on the wall. So it is what it is, and we'll have to see what happens during the budget process.
And I can also advise that I talked to, just as an aside, I talked to Clint about it, and he said, you're going to be asking for more levy money. And then on the heels of that, he said, oh, unfunded mandate. So he actually knew the answer to it because I've talked to him about it before. He knew, he was able to answer his own question. And so it's not going to be a surprise to the administrator. I know we're going to have to do what we do in the budget, but I think I've told everyone who needs to know at this point.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Supervisor Severson?
Jennifer, that 36,000 or roughly 40,000 that you're talking about, you said goes to the general fund.
Yep.
Is that something that can be, instead of going to the general fund, given back into your budget?
You know, we've talked about that. I generally don't like having an income budget because it's not the proposition of our office. I know there have been people previously who said, well, why don't you just increase the cost, or why don't you increase that in order to get more money into general revenue? And quite frankly, that's offensive because it's not my job to get money into general revenue. Although if we do, we do, and I don't have any objection if that's how it is and that's appropriate. I know we've been talking about getting the victim witness money back in to our line item. Sort of the problem with that is we never know, because we never know how much that's going to be during the pandemic. People aren't paying their costs and their fines, right? So the amount goes down at the state, and then the state can change the percentages. So it's something we've never relied on. And quite frankly, I think until we got Clint on board, that was never even accounted for in the budget, at the general budget, as potential revenue. I always thought it was like, hey, here's the check. We have an extra, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So I don't think that was ever accounted for. I think for the first time I did it, and I accounted for $20,000 for it, not knowing and referring. And we got more money than that. So that's kind of where it's been historically. And I've always been concerned. So yay, we have a revenue stream. The revenue goes down because it goes through the state, it has to go through the defendants. And all of a sudden, Jennifer's over budget by $1 zillion. And it's really because we got $1 zillion less. So I don't think it matters particularly, because all the money comes out of the same pot. But if someone wants to note somewhere that we got that money from the state, that would be fine as well.
Got it written down.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, so now we move to item number 9, approve monthly invoices and other sheriff department reports.
So if you want to go over the bills first, I guess, if you have any questions, let me know. Wasn't a big amount of bills.
Sorry, give me a second here to get to it. Again, there it is. Does anyone have any questions on the bills? Taylor? Looked like it was mostly.
WRCO tower is being paid this month. That goes up about 3% every year. So that's a $5,800 bill. So that's about the only thing that stands out to me.
All right. All right, motion by Cosgrove. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Severson. All right, any other discussion on the bills? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the bills are paid. Moving on.
Other than that, the monthly report for the sheriff's department, there were 63 jail bookings for the month of May. Average daily population was 30.44. Monthly complaints were 160, down a little bit from previous months. Traffic citations were at 62. Papers served were 35. There were 2 transports for the month and 6 people on electronic monitoring. For the month, there was 371 calls for service, 92 calls for the EMS, and 74 calls to Richland Center Police Department.
So 30 that's actually the highest we've been in a long time, our inmate count.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
quite a bit higher. So are we getting the lower rate on meals?
I think 30 is like
Is
the
it 30
cutoff
the name?
for
I
the
thought 30,
lower-
yeah, I thought 30
So-
was the cutoff.
So I don't know, if that's the average
That
daily
0.44
population.
person
Yeah.
is really important there.
I think for the most part, it's been
The
still below
25, the
30,
20.
so it's been the higher rate, yeah. And we're having some issues with our meal place. I think they're having problems with employment and
As
getting
everyone else
workers.
is.
And so we've had some days where we've opted for quick trip
Oh,
meals.
okay.
So
So but then you don't pay them
we
either.
don't pay,
So
right, correct. And actually, I figured it out the other day when I got the receipt from Quick Trip. I spend about $4.75 a meal for their meal compared to $5.45 for the,
And Quick Trip
Summit.
doesn't want to do it full-time though.
probably not. Probably.
Yeah. And I bet the people enjoy the Quick Trip meals.
They do. They
Yeah.
do like the
They have good food.
sandwiches and pizza and chips and.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? No? All right. Hang on. See. Yeah, approval to hire casual employee for patrol, transports, and court security.
So the department is looking to hire James Tucker as a casual employee. He would be helping out with patrol transports, but most importantly, court security. Currently, we have one person in the department for court security, and with court starting back to in-person, we need more than one person to cover that. James is fresh out of the academy. He'll need some training to prepare him for job duties. So we're asking for approval to hire him.
Anyone have any questions about? No?
What about Mark Cooey? What would he think about this?
Well, we have in your budget casual employees.
Right.
This is a budgeted item that we've talked about
Yep.
for quite a while now.
Yeah, and we used to have about 3 people, I think, for court security and.
I don't actually consider it to be a new position because we've always had court security
Yeah.
positions and they just haven't been filled since
Yeah.
the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, it's statutory.
And
The
we have
sheriff's
to,
provide.
and we have to
security
provide court
court.
security. So, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see how we could avoid
Right.
having this.
There's no, it's just basically, it's casual, so there's no benefits with this position.
It's hourly.
And like you said, it's
Well,
budgeted
We
for.
could. Theoretically, we could.
We could offer it as a full-time.
I think they have to have so many hours.
So this person is fresh out of the academy, so what kind of training do they, and what are we providing?
I'm not sure what I mean, if he would need to cover for patrol reasons,
Wouldn't
he
he
would
have
have to have some field training, with.
That's you, right? When are you talking to the mic? Sorry, so Dave can hear you.
We have 2 officers that are FTOs, field training officers, so you would have to go through the entire program.
But not for court security?
No.
Just for if he wanted to be patrol?
Right, right.
So at this point, he's mostly going to be court security.
That's, I think, what their main priority is court security.
Okay.
Is there policies written on that, on like how to handle certain situations within court, or is that all trained in the academy? Like, does Richland County have a policy that says, hey, in this situation, you should do this, in this situation, you should?
You have to get closer.
General policies that specific at all.
They're armed, right? I assume?
Yeah.
That would be the.
Yeah.
sort
And
of
they
the
have to
point.
go, as a court security officer, they have to go through firearms training.
They have firearms training and,
Mhm.
and this person has been interviewed and you guys you've interviewed him and this Tucker, is his name James Tucker? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Entire process? Okay. All right. Do we need a motion on that? Probably?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Motion by Cosgrove,
I'll second.
second by Supervisor Turk. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Go ahead and get that set up. Just in time for well, the jury trials. All right, item number 11, radio tower project updates. I guess I'll talk to this, and maybe Barb, but so I don't know if you guys were all in on the email string. I assume you were, but we did decide we will have a separate meeting with the radio tower consultants. Is it the 24th? 20, it's,
I just looked at it
I don't,
yesterday.
I know I did too, and I don't remember the dates. So I guess I would like to confirm that we will for sure have a quorum, that there will be at least 3 of us that are able, hopefully all of us, but because I think this is going to be a really important
It's 21st at 12:30.
21st at 12:30.
And it's virtual.
And it will be virtual, so hopefully that makes it easier for people.
I'll be there.
Good. Cosgrove, Severson.
And I do have the day off that day, so
Like,
just a little reminder because it's not a normally regularly scheduled.
yeah, I can send out a
If it can be on
reminder.
my calendar, someone can put it in there. Okay.
Look, what, Ms. McGuire, can you make it, do you think?
What's the date again?
Monday, the 21st.
21st of June at 12:30.
So a week
I
from
can,
this
I can
Monday.
make that.
Okay, good. Because I think this will be really important. We'll hear,
Are you here?
no, it's going to be virtual because
Oh, it's gonna be virtual.
21st, 21, yep. Yeah, I think it'll be, well, obviously it will be him telling us this, what our current situation is, I believe is what we will find in this meeting, correct? It's this, and then we will be, I assume, speaking on next steps, which I believe the next step is to determine what we need. That's my impression.
Sorry, we talk about time?
12:30? 12:30, yep. Do you need a mic, Barb?
I'm gonna borrow John's. I know I thought I put battery in that one yesterday, I must have. So I did receive some information from Mike about this, and we should be set for a review of what we have and the deficiencies that he found. After that, then we have to make a decision. We had set aside 40,000 for this, and this part of the project was 24,000. Our hope is that we will take the remainder to do the next piece, which would be to write the spec to put out for RFP so that we can get those bids coming in so that perhaps next year we can move forward with the project.
Right, because at this point, we don't even know how much it's going to cost to give us an intact radio
So
system.
this will just be to review the deficiencies and the strengths that we have.
He's going to be providing us a report ahead of time, correct? So
Yes,
that we can look it
you will
over.
have it over. And he sent me a really rough draft. And it wasn't even our data, but just to say, is this what you're expecting? This is what we're prepared to do.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think he was on vacation or something, but he was going to send it to us before the meeting so that we have time to review it. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, does anyone have any other questions on the radio tech project? All right, moving on to number 12, mapping radio system and spot updates. Thank you.
I have nothing. Clay didn't submit anything before he went on vacation. Unless you know of anything.
So we're assuming we haven't had any disasters or
No.
things have been not working? Okay. All right, so item number 13, future agenda items. We have the one future agenda item. And I guess we'll address all of these other departments that report to us. We'll find out as far as bills, how it is that they only go to audit and not through this committee like the sheriff's department has to. Any other future agenda items? Anyone? All right, and with that, we get to item number 14, adjournment. All right, motion by McGuire. Second by Severson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned to what is the date of the next meeting? It would be July.
Yes.
9th?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
Oh,
right, the
yeah.
21st of June. Correct, thank you for catching that. What is our July meeting date though?
July 9th.
July 9th, okay. All right, so we are adjourned until June 21st. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have it at night at 6:30 p.m. meeting?
No, we can't. That's directed at me.
Oh.
Mhm.
So I talked to
Derek yesterday about those bills and whatever. He said that it has to go to a committee, which I knew it did, but he